Having spent the better part of the last 10 years covering the restaurant industry, I've been fortunate enough to cross paths with the country's top chefs. What I've always enjoyed most about these culinary encounters aren't necessarily the meals or the dishes themselves, though they certainly are memorable, but rather the conversations and discussions which we've had once service has come to a close. Now I'm sharing these conversations with you. Join me around the table. This is After Service with Steve. It's here in Camps Bay, Cape Town, between sweeping views of the Atlantic Ocean and the majestic Lion's Head, where I find myself at the critically acclaimed Salsify at the Roundhouse. It is here within the richly storied walls of this national monument, the Roundhouse, where Chef Ryan Cole is bringing some of the most exciting cooking happening in the country right now to life. We're here today with Chef Ryan at Salsify at the Roundhouse. Chef, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, always a pleasure to be here. And I think every time I visit, it reminds me of the launch, which seems like both yesterday and a million years ago.
Yo, time flies.
No, it's absolutely crazy. And in, 5 years now, the changes, you've gone through another renovation. You are now chef and sole owner.
Yeah.
And yeah, the awards just keep coming in.
Yeah, we've been very, very lucky. I mean, it's been a hard, at 5 years in October. So it's been, I mean, we opened a restaurant in the boom of hospitality. I think that year there was 8 or 9 that opened. 8 or 9 restaurants opened all in the same year.
Yeah, it was a big year for restaurant openings.
The market was booming, and then I think 12 months, that was it. And then the big C happened.
Yeah.
And then, then it was kind of reinvent. And then, I mean, we just traded through, and then as it came out, we grew, and then we've been very, very lucky.
No, I mean, I think it's a testament to your work and, what you're putting forward here.
Yeah.
I mean, awards keep coming in. Eat Out, one of only 5 restaurants to get 3 stars.
Yeah.
A host of accolades last year. And it really is just the growth in where you were when you opened to where you've come now, I think is, immensely impressive.
Thank you. I mean, I'd like to think that everyone in the industry works hard, and we all I think at the end of the day, we strive for progress, because perfection is never reached, and it's so individual, and there's so many variables, but we have. It's you've got to, with all the accolades and awards, it's really cool for the team and for the business, for the restaurant. But for me personally, it's something you can't take personal.
Yes,
it's a beautiful thing, and I feel very grateful to be one of 5 restaurants with only 3 stars. Eat Out's back, and last year was an amazing year for us. But it's also a very real reminder for me that can't be your sole drive. It's almost the fruit of a beautiful, healthy tree. Yeah. Which for me is very important to sort of keep mind of.
I couldn't agree more with you, and I think that what we often see is chefs get lost in the competition rather than, the passion for what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the end of the day, passion doesn't pay the bills. It still has to be a well-run business.
Absolutely.
But I think your focus really always has to be on your customer and providing the experience that you've showcased, not trying to mold an experience for an award or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we've really focused on, and I mean, it's something that we're already aware of, is the fact that this experience that Salsify is very much about the diner.
Yeah.
It's as much as you can easily play into what you want it to be, and have it be an expression of my mood for that day and everything else. For me, almost the blessing of having the closed kitchen opposed to an open kitchen, where the kitchen is always going to be the heart of the restaurant. But because the kitchen is not visible to the room, it's almost a reminder, a very real reminder that this is about the guest, and the engine, the heart ticks over quietly.
And it is, you found a really wonderful way of merging the two, despite not having an open kitchen. What I always think is impressive is how much your team, the kitchen team, engage with your guests. And I think it's something that is so beautiful about food, is this connection that we have with, not only each other while enjoying a meal together, but also with the people who make our food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. It almost happened quite organically that the chefs bring out the courses and explain things, because there's just so much passion and enthusiasm for what they've done.
Yeah.
So what we do here is the people that are responsible for building the gifts, for example, your first, second, third course, all the way to the end, that's all been divided up into sections. And on those sections, you have teams, and the teams will take turns of taking out dishes and explaining, and you can just see them brimming with like and they're like, and then we add this, and I mean, they're not like professional waiters, but there's just so much passion there that you can't help but like smile and go like, fuck, I can't wait to try this. This is exciting.
Yeah, no, and I think, I mean, I want to touch on that aspect of professional waiters in a bit, but just going back to launch, what I remember you talking about, and it's something that stuck with me, and again, like every time I visit, you spoke about Salsify being about the study of the ingredient, of the cuisine, of, you know, this constant study. Do you feel like that's still the case?
I do. I think so. When we sort of, for me, the thing I enjoy not most, I love everything so much that I hate it because it's like an obsession. But for me, like the really exciting part is always, it's always, you know, like food needs to be clever, not you're not trying to make it clever. It just needs to be clever. Like, you know, if you want somebody to see something, you mustn't point it out. You must just tilt their head in the direction they need to be looking. So it's very much a study and like bringing out the nuances and things that people don't naturally associate. Like quite often you'll have a secondary ingredient being the star of the show, but you're not going to tell somebody that. Then afterwards they're going to be like, hold on. And then,
what was that? Like, what was that part of the meal?
Yeah.
No, yeah, and I think that does shine through in your food. You'll have a beautiful dish, and it will have a beautiful, you know, main piece of produce on it. But you do often find joys in those little bursts of flavor that, you know, are unexpected.
Exactly, the things you just don't expect. You know, for me, it's like, it is kind of like our sort of like mantra is sort of expect unexpected, because it might look like a mushroom, but it's not going to taste like a mushroom, which is like...
Or if it does, it will taste like the most mushroomy mushroom.
Yeah, the most mushroom you've ever had, yeah.
No, of course. And then just, as I say, going back to that idea of, you know, this professional service, I recently read a trend piece you did, and you mentioned African hospitality. And I think it was such a wonderful concept of, you know, moving away from this stiff upper lip service towards something that is much more, you know, locally driven, locally, you know, acceptable in a way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, still offering a fine dining experience, but in a way
that, the stuffiness.
in a way that people feel comfortable, and they're still coming, you know, for dinner, and they're talking, and they're excited about what's on the plate, and they're not afraid to engage.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, so the idea of the African hospitality, or the name we've given it almost, is it's because like Salsify being a 350-year-old building and like a national monument, and it is an old home.
Yeah.
And I think it should be treated as that. And like, so we've really, I mean, at the beginning, like the sort of restraints of being in a round building and like having only so much room and like so many like restrictions was like almost frustrating. And then you kind of like lean into it.
Yeah.
So when you learn to lean into it and actually go, you know what, this is our home. And like by our, it's Salsify and the people who make Salsify work. And it was at that point where we were actually, I was like watching the guys, and you know, we do a lot of training with the staff, and then it kind of like I was watching them doing training with like this incredible like leader of the industry, as like, and I was just kind of like, why am I like trying to match European standards of what service is? Because the thing is that like I'm South African.
Yeah.
And we are all African. Like everyone that works at our restaurant is African.
Yeah. So
like why don't we just actually lean into what we're good at? Like, and make this everyone's home. And you know, like you're gonna be remembered, you're gonna sit down, they're gonna be like, oh, you love the Negroni. Oh, your favorite bubbles is like the Charles Fox.
Yeah.
And for me that is the key. So I've really like given the front of house team the task of like let's actually build a framework for what African hospitality is, but also holding ourselves accountable to like the expectation of standard.
Yeah, a standard of hospitality.
Exactly.
And I mean, you speak of the 350-year-old building we're in, and yet you have an incredibly young team.
Yeah.
And I think that contrast is such an exciting thing to have in the industry right now. I think you probably are one of the youngest teams competing at your level. Not, I mean, hate to say competing, but you know, cooking at this level.
Yeah, I mean, for a lack of a better word, competing is the right word.
Exactly.
But you're completely right. Like the average age in the kitchen, I think I'm like in my early 30s, and then the rest of the team is in their early 20s.
Yeah.
Like so, and in the front of house, you know, We've got like a team of sort of student waiters that like they come in when they can, and then we've got our resident waiters. Also, the oldest is Rogers, and he's like 31.
Yeah.
But for him, it's a career and it's his profession, and it really is. So we're leaning into the fact that, like, you know what, let's not take this too seriously. We're very serious about what we do, but, you know, like, let's just lean into the fact that it is a bit of a juxtaposition, because you've got tablecloths and then you've got a wall with graffiti on it. So it's sort of, you've got to just like work with it.
And I think that exact juxtaposition between young and old, you know, new and classic is something that, as we've mentioned, kind of filters through to not only your service but also your food. And there's a lot of classic technique, but a really fresh approach to cooking.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to have trained I did an apprenticeship in a hotel, and after that I moved straight to the UK, and then I was lucky enough to train in a 2-Michelin star restaurant, which was, you know, it was, the concept was exactly the same, in the sense of it's all about the produce and cooked beautifully. And like the ethos was, is it absolutely fucking delicious?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, then send it.
Send it in. Yeah.
Whereas there's a lot of room for the reverse as well, where, you know, people can make things look beautiful, and you can add all the smoke mirrors and everything else that you need to, which is completely cool.
Yeah.
But that's not how I was trained, and it's not like
it's not your style.
Exactly. I was taught you eat with your stomach. Like, yes, you see it with your eyes and like, oh wow, that's beautiful, but does it make you go like, oh my god, that is yeah.
Well, no, I agree with you completely. Like, I'm all for theatrics and I'm all for interesting ingredients, but to me it has to be the absolutely most delicious thing that can be done that way. Yeah. Otherwise, you know, don't do it.
Exactly.
Really. Yeah.
And you know, the classics are the classics for a reason. So why don't we take those concepts and then break them down and rebuild them as your own, so that like it's still recognizable to people, but at the same time it's still completely new. So I mean, looking at something with new eyes every day, looking at the same thing with new eyes every day, like is the goal. So you come in and you look at the same thing, but you just have to like tilt your head a bit sometimes. Like not actually, but you've just got to like lean in and look differently, because that's how you discover the new.
Yeah. How else can we do this? Or
or the what ifs.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, the ingredients you use, I mean, so much of it is foraged. You know, are we in this beautiful glen of Table Mountain National Park here? And
nestled in the foot of Table Mountain.
Nestled in the foot of Table Mountain.
Yeah.
And you also then, in addition to foraging, I know you forage mushrooms. You forage a lot of the local herbs you use, and then aside from that, on the flip side, you also catch most of the fish that is on the menu here.
Absolutely. I mean, so growing up in a fishing household, my dad, who's now ancient, he was a commercial fisherman when we were growing up, and then my brother's taken that over, and now it's like the circles have almost gone full circle. So like when we were younger, my brother used to fish with my dad, and now my dad fishes with my brother. And when I'm not working, I go out as often as I can. Yeah. Because for me, it's like a stark reminder that like that's a very difficult job. And it's only once you actually see and experience like how hard it actually is, I think you can only then like fully appreciate it. Like the getting up at 2 in the morning, like sitting on a boat, running out to sea, like in the sun, the salt. It's like it gives you such
it's weathering. I mean, it's something I greatly respect about you, is how much you invest about knowing about your produce, not only where it comes from, but I mean, when we went foraging, just your knowledge on, you know, this mushroom, you know, can be eaten, this one can't, this one's actually poisonous, but only if it's grown on, you know, this tree.
Specific trees, yeah.
What drew you to learning that, or encouraged you to get to know that knowledge, and then how did you go about finding that out? Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like a work in progress. So when I was working in London, I was like very fortunate. I worked like at the hardest, toughest restaurants, like back in the old days, like where you'd work endless days. They were screaming, shouting, swearing, like. And kitchens were very aggressive and very hard places. Yeah. And then I sort of got to a point where I came back to Cape Town on holiday, and then I met up with a friend of mine, and that was Chris Erasmus, and he was like big into foraging, big into like, and that was like the new thing. And we were working out in Franschhoek on a wine farm, and the wine farm was lucky enough to have gardens, and there was an old Oom Dan, who was like, he'd been working the land there for like 30 years. So we'd go out in the mornings and pick what we needed, and then like you'd chat to Dan, he'd be like, oh, but you know, this is what we grow for you people, like for like the people that know nothing, and then this is what we actually eat. And like it was within that, I was kind of like, hang on, I think we're actually missing a trick here. Yeah. So that's sort of like, that's what's like sparked my interest. And then it just started there. And then, you know, the more you learn, the more you need to know. And then it becomes an obsession. And you kind of like, but why? What is it that you can or can't? And then that's what like triggered me. And I need to know more. I'm not just going to, I've never been one to, like you say to me, oh yeah, that is what it is. I'm not going to be like, oh, okay. I'm going to be like, okay, no. But why?
Yeah.
Like, let's unpack it. Like, so it's just, yeah, it's like the eternal quench for knowledge.
And it is. It's something I've definitely picked up knowing you, is that, you know, you're a chef who is always asking questions. You know, you'll say something and you always say, but why? And you always inquire and, you know, find the reason or find the purpose. Yeah,
you got to like challenge the idea of it. Otherwise, like we can't just accept.
Yeah.
Like, and for me, it's important because if you're saying to me like, oh, this is sustainable, and then like I go and put on my menu, it's at the end of the day I can't say to somebody else, oh no, Steve said to me.
Yeah, exactly. It's your
so
your name that
my head on the block. So like it's something I like really dive into and I'm really interested in.
No, of course.
I think it's just actually starts with an interest.
And it definitely shines through. And I think it is about endemic ingredients, and not only endemic ingredients, but also, you know, what happened here. Tell me a bit more about that, because I know it's something you are working on.
So I mean the time and the place is it's not a new concept, but it's one that's been like almost overlooked and sold as an idea and not lived.
Okay.
And so for me that's a big thing. Like, you know, like when guests come in here and they're kind of like, wow, like, and you're like, yeah, but this is a 350-year-old building. 350 years ago, this building was used as a hunting lodge. Like people would come here and like they'd sit where you're sitting and they'd hunt leopards.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine that?
That is crazy.
So I mean, if it starts with the idea of like they were hunting leopards here 350 years ago, what do you think they were eating?
Exactly.
Like,
what else was here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, so that's where it starts. And so it's knowing that the pomegranate tree is 80 years old, which is like ridiculous for a fruit tree, but it still bears fruit. Why? Like,
obviously something lends itself to being a great place to grow pomegranates, and then I guess it lends itself to what else has thrived here in the past.
Exactly.
And how it was prepared, or how
and then also, you know, like after last year was a wild year because it was really the first year that the hospitality industry in, I want to say South Africa, but specifically, I can only speak from where I am, specifically Cape Town, really just, it exploded, it boomed. And like, you know, it was the first year that all the award programs started up again, and everybody kind of said, okay, cool, we're in a position now to sort of not revive, but celebrate the industry.
Yeah, I think.
And it was with that, and like, you know, the year just flew by, and it was like this award, and we were lucky, and with this award, and this, and then it was like kind of go, and then like it hit me. I was like, but like, let's look inward, like, because it shows you that like you need to actually, instead of looking outward for inspiration, like why are we not looking here? Like why are we not celebrating our continent? Like, and it's something that's, it's just like, it's the new thing that's triggered my interest. So for me, that's what like this whole year is about. It's sort of exploring what's happening on our continent. What are people drinking? Why? How long have they been drinking for? Like, let's talk about mead, the oldest like alcoholic beverage known to mankind. It was started in Africa. Like, how wild is that?
That is crazy. I didn't know that it actually started in Africa.
I mean,
that's I guess
that's a story for another day. But like, that's where the whole term honeymoon comes from, because it was like under certain moons that you could conceive, and it was then that you would get married, because then the mead would be ready and they'd work on moon cycles. It's it's crazy.
That's a fascinating story. I'll definitely revisit that. And then when it comes to, you know, I think moving towards your menu and these seasonal produce, speaking of things like mead and these ancient ferments, it's obviously something that you use to stretch ingredients through menus to the next.
So I mean that, and it's also it's a good weapon to have going into like the sort of lower season. So like your autumn, winters, when like, you know, because you know we go through these like sort of like highs and lows where everything's available and then nothing's available, and everything's available and nothing's available. And it's also an old concept. Like back in the day, when there were no walk-in fridges, no blast freezers. Like, how do you think people survived? Like, and it's also turning that whole like like fermentation from like a cool scientific pH to like, but this isn't a new concept.
No, so this is how it was done.
Exactly. So let's go to ancient ferments and not scientific ones. Like, and it's just a cool way of like, it's a holistic view, I think.
And it ties, I guess, very much into, you know, Salsify's mentality as, you know, being this old building, being on these grounds that have, you know, provided so much,
and now to being Salsify.
Yeah.
Which I think, you know, brings us to your current menu, which I was lucky enough to have for lunch, and it was absolutely delicious.
Thank you.
No, I think, you know, every time I visit, your food just gets better and better. And
always makes me ask the question, what did you think the last time?
Yeah, no, well, that's a good question, but I think there's this restraint, and also it's growth. I think it's something that comes with, you know, your age, whereas you kind of see young chefs trying to overshoot, and I think there's just this wonderful restraint to your food at the moment, and there's this absolute clarity of where you're going with it.
Yeah. And that comes with time, you know, like...
Of course, yeah.
Like, if I look back over the last 4 years, I'm not like, oh, what was I thinking? I was kind of like, Jesus, that what I thought was good.
That's
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like something like, as you grow, your food grows, you grow, so your ideas sort of shift and change, and the narrative changes.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but it's exactly that, because, you know, if we were serving the same menu we were serving last year at this time, I wouldn't be doing my job.
Exactly.
Like, we wouldn't be in the position that we are.
No, completely. And it's this constant evolution, and with each iteration, you're improving on, you know, what you'd hopefully done before.
Yeah, and it also is a testament to the team, because it means that, you know, the base level of the skill, both front of house and back of house, is just incrementally getting better. And so it really is a testament to the ethos of the restaurant, which is sort of like, it's about sustainability in terms of, like, where do I see Salsify in 10 years from now? It's going to be right here.
Yeah.
It's going to be beautiful. It's still going to be, the Roundhouse will still be the home of Salsify.
Yeah.
And it's almost working with that ethos and with that mentality that allowed you to grow, and it makes it, it makes
gives
it real.
Longevity in
Exactly.
a way. Yeah. And I mean, if we just like had to, you know, single out a few highlights there, of which, you know, there were many.
Yeah.
But I think that langoustine dish is, you know, and I've had a few iterations of that.
Yeah.
Just talk us through the current format of it.
So it's langoustines from Durban. Yeah. The langoustines from Durban, which it's a new fishery.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful product. It's a product that wasn't available 3 years ago, because, I mean, you couldn't get it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we didn't realize that we were actually, like, before, when I worked in London, all the langoustines would come in live, and they'd come in from, like, far away, beautiful, like, places. And now it's like, actually, we're getting them here at home.
Amazing.
And it's crazy, like, how? So you currently have the langoustine, which we fry over fire. So we have a little, little braai in the kitchen, and we basically get the fire really, really hot. And then you put the lango on. You almost just lick it with the heat, and it like just sets.
Just sears it. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And then with that, we take the our gnocchi, and then we caramelize it, which kind of brings out. So it's a chive and parmesan gnocchi, and you caramelize it slightly, which sort of brings out a bitterness like in the cheese. So you've got the sort of sweet minerality of a langoustine, and then you've almost got this light bitter note, and then you've got like a truffled potato emulsion, and that just it just like adds a sort of like richness to the dish that you can't otherwise like match. And like it's probably the longest standing dish on the menu. It's been on for about 11 months now, but it's a dish that, I mean, people are like, yeah, they love it. So yeah, that's how it's still around.
And then how do you keep something like that seasonal?
So then you'd change it. So when your truffles are in, you'd use them fresh, and then as you move out of truffle season, which is also up in like KZN, the motherland apparently, and then you sort of preserve the truffles, and then you won't have fresh truffle, and you'll have it work through the potato emulsion. So you sort of like have truffles in a season. So that's almost your secondary exploration of that.
Kind of extend it and take it through. And
then where your potatoes are from as well. So at the moment, the potatoes are coming from Hout Bay. They're little from Muse Farms, a good friend of ours, farmer in Ming.
Yeah.
And so the potatoes are coming from there, and they're like super waxy, and they taste completely different as the years change. So people are like, oh, what have you done? You're
so the texture of the gnocchi then changes based on
where the potatoes are coming from.
And the langoustine you're managing to get all year round for now?
So the langoustine, at the moment, it's under, it's an experimental fishery.
Okay.
So at the moment, we're getting a constant supply through a guy that I've worked closely with for about 7 or 8 years now. His name's Kurt. He has a company called Cape Fish.
Yeah.
And Kurt as well. Kurt's, I think he's 27, 28. And he's the owner of Cape Fish. And he's somebody I work very closely with because he's also from a fishing background. And it's something he's also equally passionate about. And he's also like above board. So if we catch a lot of yellowtail, quite often we'll sell to him.
Yeah.
because he's somebody that actually understands the effort and the process.
That goes into
Yeah.
that produce. And I think going from probably what is one of the more decadent dishes on the menu to one which is seemingly humble in its approach
Yeah.
is that insanely clever fish and rice dish.
Yeah, it's just a bit of fish and rice.
You're taking two super humble ingredients and elevated it to this. I mean, firstly, it's a beautiful dish when it arrives with that rice veil on top. Like, how do you go about conceptualizing something like that?
So that would start for me with the idea of using the whole animal. So, I mean, we take the fillet. At the moment, it's cob because cob is in season. It's summertime, so we're getting a lot of like beautiful cob in. And we take the fillets, and that's what we pan frying. And then we're taking the head of the carcass, and we split it in half. We roast it off, and we call it sea oil. It's basically like it's Southeast Asian inspired oil where you're adding lots of spices, lots of herbs, lots of like beautiful fresh zesty. So we're making a fish head oil, and then we're taking the spinal cord and the tail, and we're making a stock out of that. So now you've basically taken your primary ingredient, and you've broken that down into several different components. Then we've taken that fish stock, and we've taken black rice, and we've baked that. So you've got like fish and rice, but you've got the whole animal. There's nothing being thrown in the bin.
Yeah, it's nose to tail, I mean, for use of better words.
Yeah, but so it really is the study of a single animal, and it ties into the fact that it deserves to be studied. So that's how, like, conceptually that dish came about, because I wanted to do something with fish and I wanted to do something with rice. So you've got 6 different textures of the rice, and you've got your fish in sort of 3 applications. So, and then to marry that whole thing in and tie it in seamlessly, that is the job of the chef. So that's sort of the challenge.
And I mean, I think it's incredible because a lot of times it is very easy to, you know, impress with truffle or langoustine or caviar or wagyu, for instance. But to impress with something so humble. Yeah, no, so I think that's, you know, testament to like you as a chef. So yeah, well done.
Thank you.
We'll be back with Chef Ryan Cole after the break.
After Service with Steve is brought to you by Stella Artois, the internationally beloved Belgian beer, crafted from hand-selected ingredients. With a brewing legacy of over 6 centuries, Stella Artois invites us to make time for the Life Artois, where we can slow down, savor life's moments, and share the enjoyment of good food, great music, and each other. Join me as I open a beer and chat to the country's top chefs.
We're back with Chef Ryan Cole at Salsify at the Roundhouse. Chef, we always finish off the interview by discussing something you do outside of the kitchen. Balance is very much a buzzword that's going around the industry at the moment, and I think it is key. I think we're getting better chefs out of it. We're getting longevity out of chefs. People are staying in the it's sustainability in a way that, you know, we've been looking at sustainability of produce and sustainability of ingredients, and I think, you know, it is long overdue that we're looking at sustainability of
humans. Yeah, agreed.
It is a pivotal part of the puzzle.
So what do I do outside of the kitchen?
I mean, I know you spend a fortune of time foraging and fishing. But I believe you're also becoming quite the avid boxer.
Yeah. So I mean, my 3-4 favorite things to do when I'm not working would definitely be fishing. And then either being on the mountain foraging, but also it's like a 2-bird 1 stone.
Yeah, exactly. It's still kind of working.
Yeah, it's still like on the clock, but it's very much like we've got a little puppy named Truffle, a little Staffy. So it's an excuse for her to get out, and we like spend as much time as possible out in the mountains and out in like the veld. And it's sort of also like within foraging, sort of coastline, like just being at the ocean side, because it's a completely different experience being on the ocean in a boat and then actually being like
parallel to the ocean.
Do you know what I mean? It's like a different experience almost.
No, completely.
And then then 4 times a week, getting up early before most people, and I got training in town. Honing a new skill.
What type of
boxing
is it?
It's traditional boxing. I mean, it kind of started as an outlet to just sort of getting fit. But it's very much become like part of my routine. It's a sort of a way to like unwind and unbox. But unbox the mind, because there's clarity, there's silence, it's the one time a day where you don't have
outside of everything else you normally do.
Completely outside of the industry, you know. So it's also a good environment to be in where you're surrounded by nobody who does what you do.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's new. So you're a nobody, and it's like, everyone's like,
no
you're a cook. I'm like, yes, I am. I'm a cook, and I love it. And they're like, oh, lekker. No, that's nice.
I also enjoy braaiing.
Yeah. I make a mean lasagna. Yeah. So that's, it is something I really love.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, is that something you encourage in your team? You know, how is that factoring, you know, into the current work schedule? I know there's a lot of talk about less days, you know, more hours, less hours. How are you finding your team find balance?
So I mean, in the culture in our kitchen is very much, like, I'd say a healthy one, because like the guys are all very aware that we work hard. And you know, the thing is, like, as chefs, you actually have to treat yourself like an athlete. Yeah. Because you're running at a high level of output. Yeah. So you need a high level of input.
Of course.
So the team at the moment get 3 days off. So we're closed Sunday nights and Mondays, and then everybody gets a day and a half a day.
Okay.
So within a condensed working week, you've worked 4 days, but you've had 2 days off and 2 half days and a night off. So you kind of like, there's 3.5 days, because you know, the thing is, if you're not at 100%, you can't give me 100%.
Can't give 100%.
And I found that with myself, you know, like, especially going through seasons, and like where, you know, it's as the leader of this team.
Yeah, you feel the obligation to be here. Yeah.
And when I'm not firing at 100, I mean, then I'm not giving 100. Yeah. So like the 60% version of yourself is giving it everything, but it's not everything.
Yeah, it's giving 60%. Yeah.
Exactly. So balance is a very, very it's not a buzzword in this restaurant. It's very much like something
it's part of your sustainable ethos.
Exactly. Yeah. Because sustainability starts with the team, and it's something I'm very proud of. The fact that we've had, like, the members of our team have been with us for a long time. Sid, our assistant manager, has been with me since we opened. Nina's been here since day dot. Harley's been with me for, I think, 3.5 years in the kitchen now. Lau's been with me for 2 years. So there really is, but with that sustainability comes longevity, and that almost stems the growth and the evolution of the restaurant.
Because you're not taking a step back to catch someone up to speed, I guess.
Yeah.
You know,
you never retraining. So yeah, it lends itself to sustainability.
And that, I guess, you know, I think it's such a holistic way to view it, because I think it's very easy to, as you say, buzzword it and get caught up in, you know, oh, this is a seasonal vegetable, whatever. But actually, the whole process should be sustainable.
Exactly. Yeah. It makes it, otherwise you're selling a lie.
Yeah.
And like that's what it comes down to. And also, you don't want to be hiring people, and you don't want to just be chewing them up and spitting them out.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
you want to see people grow, and like for me, it's
better for the industry.
Exactly, and it's something I'm really passionate about, is watching my team grow, and like you see them enrich their lives, and like they I don't know, there's like a sense of pride that this restaurant, which like is mine, is actually theirs.
Yeah, and they're a part of its success.
Exactly. Yeah. And with them being part of this success, they then become successful. And it's something that really, like, it also motivates me to do better and to do more.
Well, I mean, aside from this segment meant to be about being out the kitchen, I think it is, you know, testament to you as both a chef and, you know, leading the kitchen that we've circled completely back through to it. Chef, I'm not going to keep you any longer.
Cheers.
Thank you for taking the time
to chat.
Thanks,
Steve. Always a pleasure.
This was an episode of After Service with Steve. Next time, we'll be sitting down with Chef Jackie Cameron. If you enjoyed this episode of After Service with Steve, subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. After Service with Steve is brought to you by Stella Artois.